Hey everybody, welcome back to Out of the Ordinary with Jay. And I am with
Phil.
Phil. How old are you?
61.
61, okay. And where are you from, sir?
Originally from New York.
From New York. Ooh,
Yes.
That's cool. You're a long way from home.
Yeah, well, I've been around.
Okay.
I was in New York for about the first 30 years of my life, and then I moved around quite a bit. I was in Albuquerque for 26 years, then retired out here in Phoenix just a little over a year ago.
Okay, and for context, what did you do for a living, or what did you do for work?
Well, for a couple of years, I worked as an engineer. I worked at Grumman Aerospace back in New York for about a year and a half, but the vast majority of my career was in education, and I worked at Central New Mexico Community College for 26 years, 25 and a half years. That's when I was in Albuquerque, and I taught physics and astronomy, and then I was moved into administration. I served as an administrator, associate dean for math science and engineering for 12 years.
Okay, well that sounds like a lot of grown-up stuff. So we're going to go in the opposite direction, and I'm going to ask you all kinds of fun questions, and we'll see where this takes us.
Okay.
So what do you miss about being a kid?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure what I miss. I remember as a kid, I couldn't wait till I grew up. And when I grew up, I was happy that I grew up. You know, a lot of people say, I miss being a kid. And being a kid was okay.
Right.
I guess the one thing I miss the most about being a kid is a sense of security. Because your parents are there, they're always looking out for you. And you know, if you fall down, they're going to get you back up and help you out. And I think that's probably the thing I miss the most about being a kid is just that sense of security you have, knowing that you have loving family, people there who will always be there for you. And granted, when you get out on your own, when you're an adult, you still have family, unless they're deceased, but it's different. You know, when you are a kid and you're living under your parents' roof, you know they're always there for you. They have your back.
A legal and moral responsibility to make sure you're always in good shape.
Right.
Yeah, I've never heard that answer before. That is a great answer. I was thinking, when you said that, it made me think of kind of like the opposite, but goes with it, which is like the lack of responsibility. In other words, like as a kid, you do not have a mortgage. You don't have auto insurance.
Right.
You're not worried about, you know what I mean? Like health insurance premiums or, you know what I mean? But any number of things. And I think there's something really wonderful about that.
But when you're a kid, you don't know that.
Right. So it's all relative.
Right. You don't know that till you're an adult.
Right. You have your own set of stress as a kid.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Am I going to have a friend? Am I going to have a friend?
Right.
Is so-and-so going to pick on me today?
Exactly.
Or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess in that regard, it's all relative.
And that's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, well, the first thing I thought of was lack of responsibility. And I said, no, that's not it. And I said, you know what? Being a kid was comforting because mom and dad were always there to look out for you. Yep. And you always knew you felt safe. It was that feeling of security.
So I've heard from professionals in the field of, child development and stuff like that. They'll say things like, when children play, that is their work, right? Because they're using their imagination, they're becoming social, they're learning skills, right? And it occurred to me, like, because I've seen parents where they're like, they're very serious with their kids, like, go do this or go do something responsible, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking like, I bet every 20 years the people 20 years above us look back on us and everything we're doing is moronic too. Do you know what I mean? Like you're in a dead-end career. You think this is going somewhere. You think money is the root of all happiness. You're a moron, right? And I would imagine everybody looks like a kid to the people that are 20, 30 years advanced to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, to some extent. Yeah, because as you grow older, you gain more experience, become more knowledgeable, and wiser, supposedly. Yeah. So yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Yeah,
like if say somebody's a child and they're into like whatever their hobby is, and they're really into it and they're having fun and they're being creative. How is that much different than the person who whatever owns their business and they're, being creative, trying to get customers? It's like, it's really not that much of a difference.
Not really.
Anyway, it's kind of interesting. All right. Okay. Are you more into looks or brains? You're out there in the dating world and you say, if someone says, they're profiling you. What matters more to you, Phil?
I would say the most important thing is really a person's personality. You know, looks are important. Yeah, there has to be a physical attraction, but even if a person is a woman is physically attractive to me, are we talking about men and women or
yeah,
right,
yeah,
okay.
whatever
okay.
you, yeah,
that's what I
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Then, you know, even if a woman is physically attractive to me, if she doesn't have personality that that clicks with me, then I'm not going to be interested. You know, I like people who are optimistic, smile, or, you know, have a good outlook on life. And if someone could be the most beautiful woman in the world, and if she has what I perceive to be a poor attitude, or just not the kind of person I would get along with very well, then I'm not going to be interested. Right. Conversely, maybe there's someone with a great personality, and maybe she isn't a knockout, but I would be interested if her personality were that compelling and she was a wonderful person, then yeah.
Have you ever heard of, and I'll post a link in this below. By the way, while you're watching this, hit the like button. It really helps me and the channel, so please hit the like button. But, you know, like this. But there's a thing, and I cannot remember what it's called. I'm going to get beat up for this one. That's okay. Bring the comments. But it's called the Crazy Hot Matrix. Have you seen this?
No.
I will link it in the description below. It is hilarious.
I live in a dark cave.
So it's a crazy hot matrix, and it basically puts women in this matrix of, like, you know, a crazy to hot ratio.
Right.
It is the most hilarious thing you've ever seen. And what's funny is it's presented in like a real way by like this, you know, engineer math guy. Like, it looks like it's an actual, like you're really studying something. It's the most hilarious thing ever.
Okay.
Anyway, it's pretty funny.
I'll look it up.
Okay. So, are ghosts real?
Are ghosts real? Personally,
we're only getting your opinion here, so
yeah,
personally is what we want.
Of course, that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. No, that's good. Yeah.
I don't see any evidence for ghosts. I can't tell you whether or not they're real, whether or not they exist, because maybe they exist, and we just because I don't see evidence for them doesn't mean they don't exist. But I think it's highly unlikely, based on my experience in life and based on what other people, what I've read about ghosts or spirits and whatnot, things of that nature. None of it to me is terribly compelling. Yeah. And I haven't had an experience like that. I've never seen a ghost or a spirit or anything of that nature. So for me, I tend to think probably not. They probably don't exist, but I can't say for certain. Yeah, but if you had an occasion where evidence presented itself, you're basically you're saying, I've not seen it. It doesn't really make that much sense to me. However, if some evidence presented itself to me, then there it is. Right, I'm open to any evidence that someone has to show me. Sure. Okay, let's go to the next one. While we're on a subject like this, are psychics real? I've seen too many psychics debunked, so I would say no. Again, I can't rule it out 100%, but from everything I've read and everything I've seen, like the amazing James Randi, one of my favorites, I see no evidence that psychic abilities, that anybody possesses what we would consider psychic abilities. So can I just tell you, I went to a show in Vegas. I cannot remember the guy's name. I should plug him, though. He was fantastic. But he started off as a street performer and ended up being so good on the street that Bally's, or one of these places, I think it was Bally's or Flamingo, invited him in, and he has this whole show. He's from France or something like that. But it's one of those like mind warp shows where they're like, they're mind reading or whatever. Mentalists, that's what they're called. Mentalists, yes. Okay. I am telling you, the whole entire time, I'm on this dude. Like, I got paper and pen trying to catch this guy, right? I could not do it. He does this thing where he throws out frisbees into the audience, right? And that's how it's random in terms of who he chooses. Now, I know it's random because I caught a frisbee. Okay. I was definitely not in on it, right? Okay. So then you catch this frisbee, and he gives one of the people with a frisbee a dictionary, right? And that person has to like flip through any random page and point to anything, whatever. Anyways, sure enough, he'll come out later, and somebody will he'll have somebody write something down, and it's that word. Right. Like, it's just, I know they're trickery. Right.
You know, but it's,
I mean,
but,
you
it, but
see
it's,
this all the
but
time
I'm like,
on
but I'm like,
magic shows.
but I'm like on it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, how on earth did this guy get me?
And the thing
and everybody in there.
And the thing is, once you see how it's done, you say to yourself, oh,
yeah.
Well, you know, even this, I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather taught me some really, really simple card tricks. Yeah. I mean, really simple.
Yeah.
But until I knew how he did it, I could not figure out how on earth he did it. Then when he showed me, I said, you've got to be kidding me. Yeah. That is so simple.
Yeah, and it probably is something. It's probably something like it. But he did so many to where I walked out of there and I'm like, well, I guess he has superpowers. I mean,
that's why he has his own show.
That's why he has his own show. It was unbelievable. But I could not have tried to get this guy more. And at every turn, he got me. And he would literally say, like, now you're probably thinking, I'm like, that's exactly what I'm thinking. You dirty dog. Anyway, so let me ask you this. What about, this isn't on my questions, but I'm going to ask you, what about hypnosis?
Oh, wow.
And I have a little experience in this, so I'll share my story when you're done.
Yeah, I don't have any personal experience. I'm very skeptical about hypnosis. You know, the whole idea of a person being in a trance, or I don't know enough about it, to be honest, but I'm very, very skeptical.
Can I give you my experience with it?
Yes, please.
So I've been hypnotized, I think, 3 times. Each time it was at the Improv, like a comedy show. And they hypnotize, you go up, you volunteer, you go up on stage, they hypnotize you, and then you're part of the show. And they make you do, you know, ridiculous things.
Your chicken or something.
all that kind of stuff, right? And I'm like, I went up there and I'm like, okay, well, but I wanted to be part of the show. I didn't want to be like, you're never going to get me, you're never going to hypnotize me, right?
Right.
I wasn't trying to be overly skeptical. And so what I can tell you is there's something to it, but you're not all the way hypnotized. It sort of reminds me of, like, I guess probably like if someone was getting drunk, because it allows you to do stuff you would not normally do.
Are you susceptible to suggestion?
Yeah, but like, let me give you an example. Like one of the things I had to do was I had to drink this like water, but he made it like he made it seem like I was doing a commercial for water, and like, this is the best water ever, right? And I'm supposed to do this commercial in front of the audience. But then he says, it's the grossest tasting water. No matter how hard you try to keep it in, you can't. You have to spit it out, blah, blah, blah. But you really want the part, so do your best, right? And so I take it, and I'm literally feeling a physical effect, and the water is like coming up, right? And so I'm like, but if he would have said, hey, I want you to, you know, kiss that girl in the front row, I'm like, nope, I'm good. Or if he would have said, hey, go pee in the corner, I'd be like, nope, I'm not hypnotized anymore. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
So it's almost like it gives you like a
suggestion.
It gives you it gives you a permission slip to do crazy things, because you're kind of like, you're into it, like you're in a relaxed state, but like they could never say, hey, go murder that person. You'd be like, oh, nope, I'm not hypnotized, right? But if they said do something like up to a line that's like uncomfortable, you'd be like, well, I have this, you know, this mask of hypnotism on me, so I can do a little more crazier things. Do you know what I mean?
So it sounds to me as though you weren't really hypnotized. It was you were going along with the show. If you decided, I'm going to show this, prove that this guy cannot hypnotize me,
and that's what
then of course his excuse would be, well, you weren't a willing subject.
Exactly, and they say that, of course, right out of the gate. They say, we can't hypnotize you if you don't want to be hypnotized.
Exactly.
Right.
There you go. Red flag.
But yeah, right, for sure. But they do say that people claim it's helped them with smoking, even like losing weight and all these things. I can't speak for it other than my own experience, which is to say that I could never imagine I would go up on stage and perform like that. And that it allowed me to do that is interesting. Right. But I definitely could have cut it off at any moment that I wanted to. Right. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know where that falls in the realm of what they're actually doing.
As far as losing weight and not smoking, I think a lot of that is basically placebo effect.
Sure.
Is that someone told you, I'm going to hypnotize you, and I'm going to hypnotize so that you will have greater willpower and will stop smoking. Yep. And just like you take a sugar pill and, well, my headache went away. Yes. And, well, I hate to tell you, but that was not an Advil. That was a sugar pill. You know, placebo effect. I think it's very much along those lines.
I will tell you what else was interesting about the hypnosis thing is they put you in a sort of not a state, but a place where you're very much in the moment. And you're very much concentrating. So like you're able to remember every little sort of order that he's giving you. And what's interesting, so if he says, you'll snap out of it once you hear the word chicken, let's say, right?
See, I planted that word in your mind.
Right. You did. But I'm saying you definitely did. Good job. But I'm highly susceptible, I guess. But what I'm saying is like you would go that entire hour show, and the moment anybody did say chicken, you'd recognize it. Like that's how like focused you become. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind
of you're waiting for that word.
But it's super. Yeah, but there's a whole show going on. And you're doing these other parts. If it randomly came out, you would still get. It's super. I'm agreeing with you. But it is interesting how it allows you to like hyper focus, I guess.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a very weird. It's interesting. But no one could make me do anything. This is what I would say. Nobody could make you do anything you want to do. But it's a permission slip to push the envelope farther than you might normally be comfortable with. That's what I got out of it. For me. I'm sure
now I have to go get hypnotized and see what happens to me.
You'd have to want it.
Right.
Or it won't work. Okay. Are aliens real?
Okay, this is a two-part answer.
By that I mean extraterrestrials from outer space.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so two-part answer.
Okay.
First part is personally having a background in astrophysics, but not biology. I'm not an astrobiologist, but I do have a background in astrophysics. My personal feeling, this is based on no evidence, because right now we only have evidence that there is life on this one planet.
Yep.
But my personal feeling is, considering the fact that we live in a universe consisting of hundreds of billions, if not trillions of galaxies, and each galaxy contains on the order of, say, about 100 billion stars, and many of those stars, probably the majority, have planets, chances are that there is life elsewhere somewhere in the universe. So how prevalent is life? How common is it? We really don't know. We all have one example here on Earth. We don't have evidence that there's life anywhere else in the universe right now.
Right.
So is there intelligent, it's possible that simple life forms are common, microbial life, and it could be that more complex life forms are much more difficult to come by. That it takes, that step in evolution is a very challenging step. And then intelligent life, or maybe a better word would be technological, organisms that develop technology like we have and can modify their environment, that may be even rarer still. So who knows? Now, part two of the answer is, when you say aliens, if I think we've been visited by aliens from outer space, I would say, again, I can't say definitively no, but I can say that I highly, highly doubt it. All the, quote, evidence I have seen and read is very, very meager. And there's no strong evidence that we've been visited by extraterrestrials. Part A of my answer is, yes, I believe it's likely that life exists elsewhere in the universe. Part B is, no, I seriously doubt that we've been visited by another technological civilization.
Well, I will say this, on the part B first, I'll approach that first. If they have visited here, every single one of them come equipped with some kind of ray gun that instantly turns cameras into black and white and fuzzy and barely seeable. They must shoot it immense, but right as they enter the atmosphere, they must. Well, this is the best video you're going to get.
Or what they do is they it's like Men in Black, and they have their little pen, and
there you go. Okay, that's some of the the immobilizer or whatever they called that.
I can't remember.
I think I agree with you insofar as, out there because I kind of I'm a big probability guy. And so I just look at the sheer numbers, right? This many habitable planets or habitable, and that's based on the biology that we understand. I mean, if anybody out there, or if any other civilization and any other planet created, AI and robotics first, and that became the dominant new life form, would we even detect them? They're not biological anymore, right? So who even knows? But I just think from a sheer probability standpoint, there has to be other things that we would consider life out there, and people will say oh, well, we haven't found it yet. I'm like, man, we haven't been around very long. Telescopes haven't been around that long, but yeah, anyways, pretty interesting. But I would like though it would be kind of cool if we found some treasure trove and we found this old iPad and it shows where they came down and put the pyramids up, and you're finally, okay, there's an answer. We got it.
Yeah. But just another thing to keep in mind is that just consider how long it took a technological civilization to evolve on this planet. Because as far as we can see in the fossil record, life began on Earth probably relatively soon after the Earth formed. Somewhere around 4 billion years ago, it seems life arose on Earth.
Right.
And for over 2 billion years, the only form of life was single-celled organisms. And more complex organisms really didn't arise until the Cambrian explosion about 600 million years ago or so.
Yeah.
And then humans have only been around for, hominids have been around. I can't remember the exact numbers, but not that long. Yep. So even though life has existed on this planet for a long time, it's taken over 4 billion years for. And I would say there are other species that are intelligent. Dolphins, apes are all intelligent
whales,
creatures.
Chimps.
But as far as being able to develop technology, it's taken over 4 billion years for a technological species to evolve on this planet. So how common is that throughout the universe?
Yeah.
So whatever star the planet is orbiting has to be stable for that period of time. It can't be a short-lived star. The environment has to be suitable on the planet. If the planet is too geologically active,
the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you. I know you're not a biologist, but you are a scientist, and you may not know this answer. But I was just wondering, when you were mentioning about the earliest forms of life, first of all, I see how it could very easily happen because you have two random chemicals come in contact with one another, and something, not even life, but just in general, two random, chemicals or substances come, and they might repel each other, they might join, they might do something. So you can see how chemical reactions would come into play. I guess my question is what did they decide is life? Is it the single cell organism? Is that what the definition of life is? Or is it any interaction because you know what I mean? We get things interacting all the time.
I think
it's weird.
I don't know the definition of life right off the top of my head, but I think one important component is a self-replicating organism.
Oh.
Something that can self-replicate. So something that can self-replicate, then grow or whatever, exist and make copies of itself. Has to be able to reproduce. And as far as you said, it's pretty simple. Chemicals come together. If it were that simple. I mean, that's the ultimate question in biology is how did life start? That is probably the biggest sticking point in all of biology is how do you go from chemistry to biology? And right now, that's something that hasn't been figured out, may not be figured out for 100 years, maybe not for 1,000, maybe not ever. Okay. We don't know.
Okay. Yeah, it's just interesting where that line gets drawn on that, but to get the self-replicating.
It's self-replicating,
Okay. If you were given enough money with no strings attached, what business would you make? Would you make a business?
I don't know. I'm the kind of person to start my own business.
No? Okay. What would you do with the money then? Let's change it.
Wow.
Given enough money to do something meaningful, no strings attached.
Something meaningful.
Or whatever, something enjoyable.
Well, I'm big on education. So, if I want to do something meaningful with my money, I'll probably donate it to some educational purpose. Something along those lines. But I don't know. I have very simple needs and wants, so I don't know what I would do. That's why I never played the lottery, because I said, what am I going to do with all this money? I'm financially secure. I'm happy with what I have. I don't need a lot to make.
And also, you mentioned probability earlier, so the probability of winning is So, is there anything that you would have rather taught or would like to teach that you didn't teach?
Oh wow. Well, it's funny because when I was a student, I just loved almost every class that I took. I just love learning new things. So one thing that I really find fascinating is anthropology and human evolution. Yeah. I've read some books on human evolution, which is why I'm a little bit embarrassed about why I can't say exactly how long ago hominids arose. I mean, I'm pretty, not, I don't want to say well versed, but I'm familiar with Australopithecines, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, basics about human evolution. But I'm no expert, but I think that's an incredibly fascinating field, and that's something I would love to study. So
Anthropology.
That
would be a fun field.
As far as other things I'd like to teach, is that what you said? What
would you like to teach that you didn't teach?
One thing I never taught that I would love to teach is calculus. Calculus would be such a blast to teach.
Wow.
And the main reason is because when I was a student, I had such a hard time with it.
Yeah.
And now that I can do it, it's when you work so hard for something and then you achieve it, it's so much fun to show other people how to do it and to help them understand that it's not impossible. And in fact, when I was teaching physics, I remember when I would teach physics too, one of the topics in second semester calculus-based physics is electricity and magnetism. And I remember I'd always do the derivation of the electric field of an infinitely long line of charge. And you have to integrate over an infinitely long line of charge. Okay. And it's a pretty complex calculation. And it's a good page of calculus until you get to the final result. And I used to get so excited when I would show that to my students. And I'd say, sorry, I get so excited. I said, I get excited because when I was a student, I couldn't follow this at all. But now I can do it. And I think it's the coolest thing.
Dude, all I know is I'm making a quote out of this. This might be our caption, which is calculus is a blast. I can't imagine anybody ever said that ever, but you heard it here, folks. So there you go. Okay, let's go in definitely a different direction.
Okay.
But since it's just a bunch of random questions, would you rather lose your vision, your hearing, or your sense of touch? One of them's got to go.
Oh, that's tough. Sense of touch, you'd really be up the creek. I mean, you'd really be in bad shape.
Yeah.
And vision, I'm such a visual person, so I wouldn't want to lose any of those things, but if I had to lose one of them, I'd probably go with hearing.
Okay.
And I know enough good songs that I can play all those songs over and over again in my head. We had the other talk about earworms, so I have quite a playlist in there already.
Okay, fine. So hearing is the one that's going if anything's going. Okay. Right. Okay. What will you never understand about people?
Ooh.
I don't want to say never, but you know what I mean? Like, what is tough to understand about people?
So just people in general.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, and this is true for me too. Mm-hmm. Why is it so hard for us to change our minds? Even when you see evidence to the contrary, you have a certain outlook or viewpoint about something or opinion.
Yeah.
And you see evidence to the contrary, it's really, really hard to change your mind. People believe what they want to believe, and you'll find ways to twist facts to align with your beliefs. And I don't understand why that is.
I think I have an answer. I think I have this answered. This is what I think. And maybe I'm jumping way too far ahead, but I think it's that cognitive dissonance, which is so like, if this thing that I thought was so true becomes wrong, what else have I always thought that was right is wrong, and you sort of have an identity crisis. I think that's what can happen to people, is like, it's like a house of cards. Like, this is the way I think the world works, and if one goes, it's not just like that one opinion. It should just be that one. Right. But I think what happens is we just tie it to our whole persona, and then we don't even know who we are, and it's almost like an existential threat. Do you know what I mean?
So
that's just an idea. I don't know if that's true.
And my question, my response to that is, why are we designed that way? Why should we not be receptive to new information and say, oh, now I see, now I can change my thinking, and because now I have a more accurate interpretation or perspective on the world.
Particularly when it would lead to things like improvement, a better life. You know what I mean? Like where it's only going to be helpful. Right. And yet you still stick to your guns.
You still resist. Exactly.
It is. So
that's the question.
It's very remarkable how we do that. And similarly, it reminds me of like how, like, you know, you might give me all kinds of great advice that you would not take yourself, even though it's wonderful advice. You know, like, you know, you should do. And you're like, yeah, that makes
That's
a lot
why-
of sense. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it though, even though it'd be perfect for the person who's even saying it. Isn't that weird?
Do as I say, not as I do.
Bizarre. It's very bizarre. And it could be dead on.
Right.
Great stuff. Anyway, it is weird how we, especially those people that are like, you know, pretend to be like very logical and very reasonable and very, you know, thought out and rational and like, you know, this is what I'm going to do because this is the right move. And then they will miss easy, you know, low hanging fruit. They'll just miss.
Right. Well, it's like a doctor. I can't tell you how many, well, I can't really say this about any of my doctors, but you see it all the time elsewhere. You have a doctor who smokes or is overweight and is telling his patients, eat less and stop smoking. You know, if you want, but they're doing it themselves. So it's along the same lines. They're giving that advice because they know it's going to help the patient's health in the long run, but they're still falling prey to those temptations. Yeah, I have an interview I'm hoping to do pretty soon with a medical doctor, and I'm going to talk. I have lots of things to discuss about it, but one of the things that I remember hearing from somebody that I know that's pretty close to me, and the doctor, they were not, you know, their oh my gosh, their cholesterol was too high, right? And they had other risk factors. And so, you know, boom, here's a statin, boom, here's this other drug or whatever. Right. And this person said, like, I don't appreciate them just like, you know, they didn't even offer to like, you know, tell me to exercise or to do a diet or whatever. And I'm like, I like to play devil's advocate a lot, but I go, I hear you, but you know, this doctor probably has seen 1,000 patients and he's given that advice 1,000 times. And, you know, 1 out of 100 maybe takes it. Right. He probably just knows that you're in a bad way and you're not likely to do these things and you better take something. Right. You know what I mean? But I'm willing to bet that if the patient had said, oh, my cholesterol's high, how can I change my diet? Right. What kind of exercise should I do? And what else can I do to lower my cholesterol? I bet the doctor would have said, well, do this, that, and the other thing. And in your case, if your cholesterol is so high, whatever, then you should also take a statin. Or the doctor may have said, if you're willing to do those things, we can do that and then check it again in 6 months or whatever, and see how it's coming along. And if it's not improving, then we'll put you on a statin. So I bet if the person had volunteered to take those steps, then the doctor would have been more willing to go there. And I'm two-faced on this because on the one hand, I see like the doctor should have said, hey, try doing some exercise. Try doing. They should have done. On the other hand, I could see if I was a doctor, I'd be like, well, another one of these. You know what? This is what you need. You know what I mean? I can be like, you know, I got to save your life somehow, and you're not going to do this other stuff anyway because nobody does. Yeah, you know, I agree with your first statement, though. The doctor should have put those options on the table because those are important. For long-term health. And I wasn't there. Maybe he did. Maybe I'm just getting the other story. But anyways, it's super interesting. But yeah. So anyways, okay. Last question for you. What would you think? And what would you do if one day you woke up and everyone was gone without a trace? It's just you. Without a trace. I'd listen for Rod Sterling's voice. Who's that? Wasn't Rod Sterling the guy who was like Twilight Zone? No, Twilight Zone. Yeah. Do I hear Rod Sterling? Okay. After a day or two of that. Oh no. Then what? I just say, what would you do if you woke up and everyone's gone without a trace? Wow, you know, that's one of those situations. The world's truly your oyster. You just don't know until you find yourself in that situation. So I have no idea. I'd probably first start by looking for people. And if I couldn't find any people, I'd probably try calling and texting people and all nothing. Yeah, and so at that point, I don't know. I feel like I would find myself in some supermarket somewhere. Oh, that's the first thing. I just thought of that. Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to the supermarket. I'm going to get some food. Or like Disneyland with no lines at all. And what you do first is you get the food that's perishable and eat that first. Sure. Because the stuff that isn't perishable, you can keep that and make sure you have a can opener. You know. Oh yeah, and then you'd have to go through the non-fun stuff, which is like make sure that there's electricity and plumbing. You know what I mean? Well, there won't be that stuff. You'd have to become an expert on all these things. If everyone's gone, then those things are going to stop working. Well, you'd have to figure it out pretty quick. Now, if the electricity was still working and my phone was still working, then I'd probably try to find out where is the water authority
Yeah, you find generator, find gasoline.
Where are the power plants around here? I know there's one power plant down here in Chandler or someplace, because I can see it when I'm hiking in the South Mountains. Only because the other people in my group said, "Oh, there's the power plant."
Yeah,
there's the what is it? SRP plant.
Well, you'd be good on a lot of stuff, because you'd have, you know, presumably you could get into everybody's homes, get their keys, get all their cars, so you'd have all that fuel on every car you'd need, you know. Anyway, it'd be an interesting thing. All right, Phil, thanks for the interview with some crazy questions. Really appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome.